Look, I've got Donald Trump and RFK Jr.'s endorsement on my book, right? And so it's like, nobody wants to see them tear down all of this ruinous, agenda items by the deep state more than me.
Of course.
Look, they want to kill us. Like they're
I know. I tell people all the time.
I mean, if these guys are really going to take down the deep state and remove all of that stuff, they'd be dead. Because that's what the deep state does. It kills people.
That's right.
Right? It's like they're just going to let RFK Jr. walk in and demolish the whole system. No.
The $1 trillion fucking industry,
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm very excited to be joined once again by Zach Vorhies. Let me remind you who this incredible dude is and what he has been doing. He was a senior software engineer at YouTube and Google for over 8 years. He worked on some of the biggest gaming systems that you've ever heard of. He also worked on Google Earth. And while working at YouTube, he learned that Google was censoring, quote, fake news. But they had their own definition of fake news. And everybody knows a lot more about this now than they did when I first had Zach on a few years ago. And that is in part thanks to Zach. And so in 2019, just to remind you, Zach resigned from Google and he took with him 950 pages of Google's internal documents and he delivered them to the Department of Justice. And through Project Veritas, he informed the public about Google's extensive censorship system, which we know today has only expanded and gotten more dynamic. He also wrote a book that I read cover to cover that I highly recommend called Google Leaks. Check that book out if you have not seen it yet. Zach, thanks so much for beaming in, dude. I'm sorry we've had one technical snafu after the next. Go figure. How ironic.
Must be the CIA.
Yeah, or somebody's fucking with us.
Yeah, right? Someone's fucking with us.
Listen, last time you were here, man, you gave us an awesome rundown on Google's search manipulations. And your testimony last year before the Texas Senate highlighted how Google's machine learning fairness, in air quotes for my audio listeners, how their AI manipulates search results to align with corporate and political bias. And the interim report confirms that these manipulation tactics are still in play and subpoenas have been issued to investigate further. But before we get into the legal battles, let's start with the core issue itself, Google's censorship mechanisms. From what you can tell, has Google's machine learning fairness program evolved over the past couple of years? And are they using more advanced AI tools to suppress or boost, obviously, certain narratives?
I mean, the problem is that a lot of this stuff is actually spread from Google to, DuckDuckGo and these other search engines. And so, just search for anything on Trump or anything political. You're still going to get, the same sort of leftist answers. And now it's also spreading to the artificial intelligence, right? Like one of the great things about Grok was that it was sort of like anti-woke.
Yeah.
And then you ask it anything about like or anything like that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, get your sisters." And so, at least we know that it's happening, and that we are being programmed. And this kind of sounded like a weird, far out conspiracy theory, but I released the slide showing that several times within the company they were talking about how they had a responsibility to program the users, and that's what they were doing explicitly, and that the programming language was our access to information, right? Like change the narrative, limit the person's ability to see the world in the way that they want to show it. And then you go left and that cycle repeats because as we go left, we produce more data that's leftist and then they just rank that stuff high. And then the cycle repeats.
Yeah. And from what I garner, I was listening to a recent Rogan podcast, not that recent, but in the last 6 months regarding, this man's who's made it his mission to, and you probably know who he is, to create a program that will monitor in real time the let's say the manipulation that Google is up to, and also quantify its effect on society, and that's what he's been developing. Of course, his wife met with a very mysterious.
Oh, Dr. Robert Epstein. Yeah, he was my boss.
That's right.
He was actually my boss until November.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, we all got let go after Trump won. Because we were able to show that there was manipulation going on, and then on November 1st, we published a detailed graph showing that Google was doing partisan go vote reminders. So if it psychographically tagged you as a Democrat, you got a go vote reminder or undecided. And if you were right wing, you did not get that. And that was happening in all the different swing states and across the nation. And so we published that on November 1st. And then when we published that, Google stopped it immediately. Big help for, Donald Trump and the conservatives to have a even playing field. But then after Trump won, everyone just canceled their subscriptions and our donations because they're like, well, Trump won now. Why are we paying you guys to show the bias? So I was actually working for him. I was under embargo not to tell anybody about that. Due to the assassinations of his wife, there was also the previous director of the company. Her fiance's face got slashed by an unknown assailant that came up, slashed his face, laughed like the Joker, and then ran off. They never caught him.
Jesus Christ.
So, yeah, I was totally involved in that.
That's crazy, man. And then, I was thinking about you when, of course, the AI whistleblower was murdered, and they're doing what they always do and pretending like it was a suicide. I mean, it was just like, wow, their tactics have stooped just as low as the CIA and everyone else who they've been involved with for a while. It's just, it's atrocious, that they would just off such a public whistleblower, and they've gotten away with it. There's been no accountability whatsoever.
I mean, look what they did to Gene Hackman, right? They just offed him, his wife, and then they're like, and his dog died too. And then the FBI later said, oh, we got that wrong. And it turned out that his dog wasn't dead. It's just like,
well, I didn't even hear. Wait, what did they? Wait, I totally missed that. I mean, I used to love Gene Hackman as an actor, but I didn't realize there was such scandalous stuff about his passing because he was so old.
Yeah, he was 90, but three dead bodies in his house. Was it just him? 3.
So he was killed essentially, or they're
Probably.
Trying to say he wasn't.
Probably.
How do 3 people end up dead, especially if they're not all 90?
Must be a coincidence.
Fucking wow. So tell me, my friend, what solutions do you see for breaking Google's, what seems to be their extensive monopoly on search and preventing more AI-driven censorship?
Oh, this is a one-way street. There's nothing we can do to stop it. It's only if the elites that are running the world decide that they want to stop it. Well, actually, let me give you a little bit more of a white pill answer. Okay. Our saving grace in this whole thing actually turns out to be China. And here's why. There's this graph that I posted that I've summarized. Why is this happening compressed into one graph? And it shows the energy generational capacity between the United States and China. It's like, we're at 4 terawatt hours or something like that, or something like that, right? And China is twice the capacity of us already. And they're going like this. We're flat. We've been flat for like a decade. And so the problem that we have is that if the elites that are running the West want to keep on running their games, the whole ship is going to sink, because China's dead set on winning the race. Right? They're trying to become the dominant force on the planet. Arguably, they already are. We don't know exactly how many nukes the elites have in space. I'm going to guess it's going to be quite a bit. But China's going to keep on getting bigger and bigger and bigger with its economic strength. And as we all know, the wartime capabilities of a nation are largely tied to its economic base. So if they're already producing twice as many electrons for energy generation capabilities, what's that going to mean when they go to 4x or maybe 8x? And so all the things, all the games that are being played against the West, the self-destructive suicide that we're going into, this plays into the benefit of China.
Yeah.
And if we're going to compete against China, then what we have to do is we have to stop that. We have to strengthen our society so that we can rise to the challenge of fighting China. And so, you know, with this AI and all this other stuff, you know as well as I do that there's a suspicion that a lot of our history has been faked and curated.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I'm well aware. Yeah.
Now, the reason why they're able to do that is because no one can sit down and read all the books that the collective consciousness of humankind has ever created. But a super powerful AI or a collection of AI agents can specialize in all of the world history of knowledge and come to a better conclusion of what our history is. And the thing is that right now with the human-centered economy, it's all held together by human perception. And if that human perception changes, let's say an AI godlike intelligence comes out and basically says, okay, here's your unbroken history.
Here's your real history.
All the answers. Yeah. What effect is that going to have on our society? And are we going to continue to push this fake narrative going into the future? You can make the most intelligent artificial intelligence imaginable. If you put it into a debate with a smaller model that holds to the truth while the big model holds to the lies, that small model is going to smoke the AI. It's not a matter of intelligence.
What? It says Zach Vorhies stopped being recording because of low browser storage. Ask him to free up space and then rejoin. Oh my God. One technical snafu after the next. Thanks
for bearing with us. Are we recording right now? Great.
Yes, we're recording.
Yeah. So look, China's kind of a saving grace because the thing is that they're going to take up the slack of anything that the United States, you know, starts to lax on, right? Like military power, censorship, whatever. Like China censors too, right? But usually they're like point out like, oh, they're censoring, you know, the Tiananmen Square thing, does Tiananmen Square even like hold a candle to like what's just been done in Gaza? Like it's so funny that we're holding on to that. That happened in the 80s, in the late 80s. We're still holding it against them that they like had this crackdown against like protesters. Yeah. Which like I don't even understand what the big problem is, right? Like, but you'll notice that whenever an AI rolls around, the deep state will be like, oh, they're censoring Tiananmen Square. Right. You know, without a shred of irony that like we were censoring people that were trying to say that people should take vitamin D during the pandemic. Right. What's worse? And so
it's a joke. The hypocrisy is a joke.
Right. The hypocrisy is a joke. And so it's like, you know, if that's the worst that China is censoring is that they're censoring like one CIA led event in their country, then they're doing pretty good. And if the West wants to lose the whole thing, the whole West, and let China dominate, which is what they're doing right now. Like they're laying down the supremacy of the entire West so that China can pick up the slack. And we have to turn the ship around. Like it's not just like if the common person's going to survive, if the very, very rich elites, the banking cartel and the military industrial complex and their owners want to continue surviving and not have an existential threat, we need to start competing. We need to start turning the ship around. And what's really interesting is this whole thing with Trump as artificial intelligence comes into the picture right as, you know, right when Clown World got totally crazy and off the rails. Bam, 2022, we get ChatGPT 3. Right? Like before that was 2.5, but it was like really weak. It was just a really good auto completion text bot. Now it's got like a godlike intelligence. And we used to be, you know, far ahead of China because of our computational advantages. Like many people don't know that the United States has an export ban on NVIDIA chips to China. And we've been using that distance, that technological advantage that we have to our advantage. But with DeepSeek R1, China proved that it's not just about the hardware that can set you apart. When they came out with DeepSeek R1, that was what OpenAI should have been. A very powerful, O1 level model by,
Right.
O1 is the OpenAI's thing that was really powerful and made a bunch of news. They released something as powerful as that, but at 3% of the cost to run, and something that you could run locally yourself when you wanted to do it. Like very fast, very smart, and they released it for free. And now people are taking this technology and then they're like, DigitalOcean, which is a cluster management system that I use to spin up machines in the cloud. They've got a one-click install for DeepSeek R1. You just put it up there and start training on it. And the thing is China going to play by the same censorship rules that we are? And the answer is no, they are not.
No.
And what's going to be the result of that? Well, if narrative is the binding glue that holds a country together, and now all of a sudden our narratives don't make any sense, and these AI bots in the future are going to be like, well, no, that's actually not true, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The elites are going to lose control. And so we're coming to a reckoning, like epistemological, I don't even know how to say that word,
Yeah.
the theory of knowing about, are we going to come clean with the world about what our true history is, how we got here, or are we going to continue down this clown world path? Because this clown world path was a really good tactic before you had these hyper intelligent bots that could read the entire sum total human knowledge throughout not only the planet, but throughout history. That's where we're at right now. And so my prediction is that rather than fix the problems that we have here, the elites are going to opt to instead create a great firewall of China to block the citizens from hearing what the other countries have to say.
That is a fascinating theory and does not sound so far-fetched to me at all. That may be their only hope. I mean, but I do love what you said earlier, and I'm hoping it recorded about, you have a lower model AI that actually has access to the truth, and then you have a T1000 spinning out the narrative, and the T1000 is going to get beat every time because the truth is like water. It's much more powerful, and people can see through the narratives better than ever because the consciousness of the planet is raising, and because people are getting wise to the lies that these authoritarian systems that have been in place forever have been spinning out. It's like one after the next. I mean, like literally, I've been doing show after show on like actual history because it's all been falsified. Every fucking thing that we're taught in school is essentially, either inconsequential or a lie, or a bold-faced lie that leaves out every important detail. Like the truth about fucking World War I, World War II, how it started, why it started, who started it, and our society is defined by these events, like Hiroshima, Pearl Harbor. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? Pearl Harbor didn't have to happen. 9/11 didn't have to happen. It was all orchestrated by the same people. And that's going to sound like conspiracy maybe to a few people, but most people tuning in by now to you and I know better. We know that passports don't survive.
Right, exactly. And it turns out that we're the bad guys, right? Like there's a lot of people that are still in the matrix that think that we're the leaders of the free world, right? While the countries are being overrun and destroyed by, waves of immigrants who, aren't being encouraged to assimilate. In fact, we've got an anti-assimilation thing now that's going on, right? It's like you're racist for, and I'm as white as you can get. Like I got blue eyes, right? Like, I've been the subject of this, and it's just like, I pay very close attention. Like, I was as a child very, very in favor of multiculturalism until my culture started to be demonized and made not okay. Right. Like if you leave a country, if you leave a place that's white flight, that's racist. If you enter a place that's gentrification, that's racist. It's just like, OK, well, should I just kill myself? because it's like there's nothing we can do if we exist that isn't, interpreted as racism. If both decisions you go down are bad, then
and that's methodical too.
it's methodical,
that's
right?
the craziest part.
Multiculturalism means that you accept many cultures, and that if you want to run a freaking taco truck, you can run a taco truck. But now that's cultural appropriation. They're having these discussions about we need to degentrify hiking trails. It's just like,
My God, man. And the craziest part about it is people don't realize that these are the fucking brainchild of these think tanks that are deliberately going to work every day to try to keep a society completely, confused, divided, manipulated, upset, and misdirected at every opportunity, so they can't see what's really going on, while their fucking rights and basic quality of life are being taken from them and made dependent on the centralized institutions. So it's fucking crazy. But I wanna get through a few more of these questions, brother. So, and this, do you see? And I'm very interested in your opinion of this. Like, do you see Google as an independent actor in shaping public discourse, or is it essentially functioning as an arm of the government in most cases? Like, I know the two are in bed. They're like two dogs humping, got stuck together. It's literally, you have one scratching the other one's back. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, they're totally a functionary of the superstructure that is above our government. People think that they are inherently leftist or communist. What's really interesting is that the propaganda that they're receiving is locale specific. If you are living in Cuba, Google is doing the exact opposite. They're censoring the left and they're boosting up the right wingers, right? And so it's not even about some sort of coherent ideology. It's an ideology of power. And so the thing is that the leftists in the United States are tearing down the system, right? They're breaking norms. They're trying to arrest a sitting president of the United States. They're allowing rigging of the entire electoral system. So they're supporting them. And in Cuba, it's the right wing that are trying to essentially have a revolution. They're trying to get rid of communism. And so Google is supporting them as well. And so whatever the superstructure is, it seems that American culture is on the chopping block here in America, and it looks like communism in Cuba is on the chopping block there. And so Google, like a good little sycophantic lapdog, is basically switching the ideology to whatever their handlers are telling them to do, country by country. And so we get this here in the United States. In Cuba, they get right-wing extremism being pushed to the top.
Yeah, for sure. And it just begs the question, who gets to make the call? I guess it's really like the power of each place, or the like you said, the people who sit on top of the obvious puppet power structure that is in place, and what they want for their corporate interests, and the global agenda that is in play, I'm sure. But let me ask you this: are there specific moments in your time at Google where you saw or were able to see direct influence from government agencies like CSIA, DHS, FBI on how information was controlled? I mean, I know they backdoor everything because that's...
No, I didn't. The thing is that, I wasn't part of the policy team or brand safety. Those were the culprits behind this. Was not part of them. I did not know the people in there. I just had all my information as a normal engineer that was working at the company. I had the same access everyone else did. For whatever reason, I stepped forward. My suspicion is that it was, the FBI. Like, that's what the Twitter files showed us, is that they've got their agents embedded at the top rungs of power, and they're hitting the censorship button over and over and over again. And so, that's what I suspect was going on at Google. We need to have sort of like a YouTube files or whatever sort of files that are going out there, so we can figure out what's going on. But my suspicion, my assumption is that it was government driven, but I mean, who's more dangerous, the government or BlackRock, right? Like we know that BlackRock was openly pushing all this stuff as well. And they're a major investor in, Google. It's like BlackRock and Vanguard, right? And so if these organizations are pushing wokeness, and censorship, I mean, that's just as dangerous as the government doing it, in my opinion.
If not worse, yeah. I feel like the government is really just, at the end of the day, they're going to be swayed whichever way BlackRock and Vanguard really want. If they were to push hard enough, how can you stop them? There's the power they have is titanic with how much they control every corporate entity that is, part and parcel with each industry. It's fucking scary. But let's get into Texas a little bit, brother. You testified before the Texas Senate in 2024 about big tech's role in shaping election outcomes. And your testimony contributed to the committee's decision to issue subpoenas to companies like Google, Meta, X, and TikTok. And I was wondering if you could walk us through, in summary, what you presented in your testimony and what you wanted lawmakers to take away. And then I would love to get into, like, what response has there been from these companies naming the subpoena, and are they just still getting away with doing anything they want, or have they complied?
So the point of the Texas hearing, May 28th, 2024, was to decide whether to empower their state attorney general to issue subpoenas against big tech to investigate the censorship issue. Right. And so I came prepared with my testimony to tell that, Senate how Google censorship worked. And we went through the whole thing, right? Machine learning fairness, their media rankings. One point in particular was the unfairness of which they were ranking many of the right-wing media sites, right? Like, they had a scale from 0 to 10 in trustworthiness. And at the top, you could imagine it was like the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. And at the bottom of the list was like Next News Network, the Young Turks, and Next News Network, which was actually sort of a milquetoast, moderate voice on the right, libertarian. He was rated a -3, right? And so Russia Today was, ranked as a 4. Mm-hmm. And so I showed that there was a difference between 7 points. And my point to that was, this is something that I would expect from a Russian propaganda outlet. Right. But instead, these are the actions of Google. And that really resonated very, very well with the, with the audience. And as a result, there was a unanimous decision to empower the AG. Now there's currently a subpoena train going between Texas and Google. Now, what's funny is that if you try to sue Google, they're going to get you on something called a forum selection clause. And they're going to pull it right into California. And you're going to go through a rigged system. You're not going to get justice. But Texas is now doing the exact same thing. They've got their own rigged courts with their own prosecutor. And so if Google is like, oh, we're not going to show the documents, then they know what's going to happen next, which is that Texas is going to file a formal subpoena. They're going to have to appear in a Texas-decided court with a Texas-decided prosecutor. It's not going to go well for them. And so what they've opted to do is they've opted to comply. And Next News Network, who, was at the bottom of the ratings despite their moderate views, as soon as that paperwork went out to ask questions about the nature of their media rankings, they immediately got rejoined into the monetization network. They started getting emails, and it was a beautiful site. It was great. And now he's part of the White House press pool. So things have really turned around for him. I'm really happy for Gary Franchi and the Next News Network, but our work is not done. We need to see more people, uncensored or Section 230 overturned, because this immunity of corporate malfeasance is hallmarks of totalitarianism. Like, the left likes to accuse us of being fascists, but fascism is the merging of corporate and state power. Google, that certainly more applies to the left than it does to the right. by far.
Right now, absolutely,
right?
no question about it.
You know, it's funny. It's like, you know, I'm more Antifa than Antifa is. Like, I'm the true anti-fascist.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, we need to turn this around, or we need to strip them away of their immunity. I mean, it's like whenever a corporation has immunity, like the vaccine community or the vaccine industry has immunity, you know, that big tech industry has immunity. And so they do that so that they can do whatever they want and you can't sue them. And they've got this legal moat that prevents any of this from happening. And so, you know, let's see what happens with that. I know that there does seem to be a reversal of a lot of the censorship stuff. And at least with Next News Network, they're getting their videos back viewable, and he's now monetized. Epoch Times is now working with the Senate to try to get some questions answered. We're going to see what happens to them as well.
Sounds like, you know, at least there's hope, you know, and it sounds like that's probably the most realistic, you know, plan to getting over the roadblocks in place that keep us from seeing any kind of accountability with big tech and their actions. You know, the fact that they followed essentially the same strategy blueprint as big pharma, you know, and their ability to get away with literal murder. Particularly with that one industry you mentioned. I
mean, unfortunately, we're like one false flag attack away from having the whole thing undone. And, you know, because like right now what we have, like if you wanted to go to war, you know, you're going to have control of the newspapers. You're going to have to control online speech and discourse. As far as I'm concerned right now, we are already in a wartime economy, which is something that I was trying to fight. Like, I don't like, you know, you lose freedom of speech, you start getting censored, and then all of a sudden the nation wants to go to war and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? Like, I feel at any day at this point, like I'm on pins and needles at this point, like with everything going on, like I feel that we are right on the verge of some false flag attack that's going to send us into war. And then they're going to be like, oh, wow, we got this turnkey totalitarian system that we've been building for the last 8 years.
We'll keep you safe.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. And, you know, I'm afraid to say this, but you're not wrong. You know, like you're not wrong. We are one false flag away. And, you know, we know who the false flag champions of the world are. At least I do. I teach people all the time about them. The United States and Israel. And who's busy bombing the rest of the fucking world right now? There's only two people, the United States and Israel, you know? So we will do that, as we have done in the past, until we provoke a fucking attack, until we make someone lose their fucking mind so much that they're willing to risk everything and fucking and take us out in some way with whatever capacity they have. That's what we've done in the past. Only now the fucking stakes have changed because these countries, you know, they either have nukes or they have allies who have nukes, you know, and we don't want to get into a pissing contest with Russia and China because they have as many nukes as we do. And we know that. I mean, fuck, Russia doesn't even know where all theirs are. And we don't know where a few of ours are too, don't get me wrong. But, you know, the point is that is annihilation. That is a path to nothing, to nothing. It's, you know, let's pray cooler heads prevail and that, you know, these people want to have something to rule at the end of the day, God willing, you know, because it's a fucking shit show, man. And, you know, one of the things I see that no one talks about, of course, very methodically and well suppressed over the years, is that, you know, the fact that we could free this entire economy. I mean, it would crash it, of course, but, you know, if we were to allow the technology that has been hidden to come out, you know, you would release a lot of the monopolies the Rockefeller Rothschild, you know, syndicate had in place because, you know, your energy all of a sudden would be free and it would be, you know, so we would be able to get
cheap to
you
meter.
know, essentially, you know, and that's a big reason why the UFO conspiracy is such a big top secret because, you know, obviously the Rockefellers don't want anyone pissing on their oil industry and pharma and petro and plastic and synthetics and all that shit would be obsolete. And it is obsolete. But most people don't know it. So, you know, we got a few wild cards up our sleeve. You know, I tell people all the time back in the 1910s, they had a fucking world meeting. They invited all these brainiacs from around the world. Why? Because New York City had a horse shit problem, Zach, right? This is a true story. And they had a big meeting of the minds. They were like, we want your help. We got a real shitty problem here, and fucking the streets stunk and New York City was gorgeous, but man, you couldn't go anywhere. There was horse shit everywhere because that's how everyone got around. And they met for like, I don't know how long, and they didn't come to a lot of conclusions. And then fucking like a year later, Ford and the rest of them came out with the car and the horseshit problem was solved. So I always feel like, there's always the unexpected that, jump in technology that can relieve us of our current problems. So I don't know. I thought that's worth mentioning for a little hope. But let me ask you
it's
about
almost as if the horseshit problem helped the car business come in, right? And I've noticed the same thing happening with search results. Like search results have gotten so awful.
Yeah.
That essentially we have to use AI now to find any information. Like I try to find answers for things and it's just searching for it is so bad that I'm just like, I just gotta ask AI how to do this, and
you think that's deliberate?
I think so. Yeah. And here's the thing with search results so awful. How is Google making any of their money? All right, like I understand why Amazon's a big company. Like I pay a lot of money to Amazon for all the stuff.
Right.
Google, I don't know anybody that's ever bought anything from clicking a Google ad. Right, but they're bigger than Amazon. Like something's like not adding up. Like they just spent $32 billion to buy like another company. It's like, where are they making their money? I just do not understand what's going on with everybody that I knew that like when I was an entrepreneur for like 3 years, I was like, who's using Google Ads? It's like no one is using Google Ads because no one's making any money off Google Ads because like it's bot traffic. The turnaround time for break even was 3 months. Right. And everyone that I knew that was in the entrepreneurial shape was like, well, we're using Facebook ads. Right. That's where it's at. And you get a tremendous ROI on Facebook. And so I don't even understand where their money's coming from. Like they claim that it's a printing press, this ad stuff, but the search results suck. I don't know anybody that's using it. I am completely baffled by how exactly Google even makes their money at this point.
It's got to be the only way I figure it is it's the fact that YouTube, is being globally watched and there are people funneling ads of every kind onto, and the people who see, most of them are the ones who don't have official accounts. They're just kind of clicking a link and watching from like a random phone in fucking India, and I feel like, God, that's got to be where they're still getting the bulk of their money because, there's a lot of fucking companies still using Google via YouTube to advertise their fucking products. I don't know how many of those companies are media or small, but everyone is still convinced that there's potential for revenue there. I'm not. I'm with you. Like I don't see it at all. I don't even remember the last time I fucking saw an ad because I have an account. I don't see a lot of ads on YouTube, and they don't run them on my shit for obvious reasons. But let's talk about our friend Elon Musk, very controversial figure, and his appointment to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as the DOGE. Raised concerns about potential conflicts of interest, given his business empire's deep ties to government contracts, emerging technologies. So some see him as this freedom of speech champion, as a necessary disruptor, and others are worried he's simply consolidating power and tagging along with the current administration. What do you think?
I don't know. World War III breaks out. Elon Musk's going to be a very rich person. He's got a monopoly on space. He's got SpaceX. He's the one that's trying to stop World War III. Apparently, but he's going to be the biggest profiteer from it. And it's like, God, I don't want to give my opinion because it could be dangerous. Look, I seen him speak at CPAC. Everyone was like trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with him, right? Like like, look, like if you asked me, like, Zach, why do you do, what you're doing? I would talk your ear off on why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, it's no problem for me to answer the motivations behind the actions that I do. And Elon Musk got asked this question at CPAC, like, why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And he gave a bullshit answer. Like he
hit his brainwashing
for words. Like he didn't know what to say. It's just like, this is not the behavior of a person that is so driven by principle that he's going to, stand up and not be able to give an answer. Like, well, why are you trying to do this whole Doge thing? He's like, right? He's like buying time to come up with the answer. Then he comes up with the answer. It's just like a word salad. Like when someone's trying to ask you, like, the theme of some book report in high school, and you're like, you know what you're going to say is bullshit, but you got to say something. Like that's what he sounded like at CPAC.
Wow.
And I was sitting next to, someone in the media, and I was like, what's going on? And, there's this Asian girl. She's like, why is Elon Musk talking like that? He's like, well, he's got autism and stuff like that. It's just like, no, he's not retarded, right? He's not disabled. He's doing all this stuff. But what we have to realize is that Elon Musk is the foreign hero that the elites want to put in front of us, where they do something really bad and then they get to choose the hero, right? Like, why is Elon Musk even here? It's because the left loved him so much. They said he was the next Einstein. They said how brilliant he was. He was the environmental savior that was going to rescue us from the fossil fuel economy. And now they're setting his cars on fire, right? And he's going out there. He's meddling in other people's elections. Like, look, I don't like the German government. I think that AfD is controlled opposition. I don't have a problem with supporting AfD. Oh, I think AfD is better than the current system, right? But he's going in there as a major figure, and he's letting his position be known, and he's creating opposition. He's giving them the justification for demolishing international free speech, right? Oh, they're just going to ban X now, right? Yeah. I mean, is all this stuff necessary? Like, he could work behind the scenes. He just doesn't have to let everyone know, his opinion. And, he meddles. I don't like the Brazilian elections. I think they were rigged, right? But he deeply meddled and then pulled all the support. Like, people backed him, and then they all went to jail, and he just sort of forgot about it and moved on, And he's meddling in the UK elections. He's meddling in the German elections. In a way that is beyond what he should be doing right now. You
could make a case he meddled in the American elections by doing what he did with Trump all of a sudden.
Yeah, but I mean, at least he lives here, right?
Yeah, for sure.
He's a citizen.
He does have a stake in the...
Yeah, he does have a stake. He's a citizen. He has the right. He's earned the right to be able to criticize the politics. But the problem is that it's an insincere support. You'll say, like, oh, here's the train. The train's going to Freedomville. And the conductor is Elon Musk, and you're going to get on there, and he's going to pull support, and you're going to go to jail, right? Like, the same thing happened with, like, Trump's attorneys during the 2020 election. They lost their jobs and their livelihood as lawyers trying to, make sure that the election was not being rigged. Like, Trump did go out there and try to do a GoFundMe for any of these people, let them rot in prison, let their licenses be removed, right? And so the problem with all this stuff is that, like, if you back any of the people, your life is going to be ruined. You want to be, you want to be against Trump, you want to make that your identity, like, get ready to have toxicity, almost like stink lines coming off the top of your head. Like, I see these people now, like, it's almost like they're sleeper cells. They're on Facebook constantly, multiple times a day, bitching about freaking Trump, right? And if you're the opposite way, where you're like, oh, Trump's good, he's the savior, Elon Musk's going to say, like, you're also going to go for ruin, right? Like, there's no good guys in this fight, because each one of them is controlled, and the whole thing is designed to maximize chaos and disruption for God knows what purposes. I guess for a reset of our economic system. Like, we're right on the foothills of the fourth industrial revolution. Are we going to switch to, it's not going to be communism, it's not going to be fascism, it's going to be a technocracy. Right. And that doesn't really get a lot of play, that word technocracy. But, you should start learning it, because it's, if you want to take elements of fascism and the elements of, communism, but with a cyberpunk twist, that's what the technocracy is. And the technocracy is going to be robots flying around everywhere that can, basically, like, hell, in San Francisco, they voted, but it was reversed for unknown reasons, to allow autonomous robots to use lethal force in police enforcement, right? And guess what video that they used, or the picture that they used on the paper here to showcase why that was necessary? They used my picture. Right? Not my face, but it was the standoff that I had in 2019 when Google came to my place. Like, it was the weirdest thing, looking down, like, whoa, this is my place in San Francisco. And they used my picture to show why police force would be necessary. And it's like, that's complete fiction. Nothing bad happened other than there was a, standoff at gunpoint. Right? Not the picture you should use to justify why autonomous drones should get
lethal. Yeah. Or fucking robot dogs.
And then it got vetoed 24 hours later. It was almost like a show of power. Like, oh yeah, this is coming, right? Almost kind of like the women being drafted thing. They put that out and then they pull it back. And so you hear one headline, but you miss the other one. And then you say, yeah, they're women can be drafted now, right? And then you go and you look, and it turns out that that's not true, that it got pulled at the 11th hour. Yeah. And the headlines, showing that it was an imminent thing, turns out it wasn't true because they just pulled it right back afterwards. Right.
Tell me, my friend, Bobby Kennedy Jr. wrote the foreword on your book. I'll never forget reading it because I was always a big fan of Bobby's. But, since he's got into, and through the Maha movement, which I believe helped Trump tremendously with a large demographic. I mean, I've seen a lot of things happen, and I know how well they are at keeping people's shoelaces tied together and keeping them firmly drowning in the swamp that is DC and the bureaucratic nonsense. But my hope was that Bobby stayed true to stuck to his guns when he got in. And even though that act cost his uncle and his father their life, at this point I was hoping that he was going to go for broke, and really go after the vaccine industry, really go after some of the absolute corruption in our Food and Drug Administrations.
Best you can do is a measles vaccine.
And apparently, at this point, the best thing you can do is recommend a measles vaccination. Well, what do you think? Am I the only one who is a little crestfallen about what Bobby has said and done since he's been in, or is this what we should have expected all along?
I don't know, man. It's it feels so dated. Look, I've got Donald Trump and RFK Jr.'s endorsement on my book, right? And so it's nobody wants to see them tear down all of this ruinous, agenda items by the deep state more than me.
Right.
Was not happy that he shilled for the MMR, right? That measles outbreak is probably, life strain that escaped.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, look, they want to kill us. They're
I know. I tell people all the time.
I mean, if these guys are really going to take down the deep state and remove all of that stuff, they'd be dead. Because that's what the deep state does. It kills people.
That's right.
Right? It's they're just going to let RFK Jr. walk in and demolish the whole system. No.
The $1 trillion.
No. I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, there goes monetization on this podcast.
Sorry about that,
No, it's not your fault. Listen, I'm used to it, man.
You're going to have to do some careful edits if this is being recorded. Are we streaming or is this being recorded?
It's being recorded. Yeah,
okay. We'll have to edit it out. Yeah,
we'll cut a section out for our Patreon page.
Yeah, good call.
That's the best way to do it these days. It's like you said, man. It's fucking. It's. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. People like me, who I was like, listen, I'm going to admit this, and I'm not going to do it with any pride. I voted for Trump because the other side seemed to be, very much cheerleading the genocide, and of course then the fact that there's a whole slew of brain dead people completely not even really there running the country. And I thought, what could possibly be worse than 4 more years of that? So I voted for Trump, and now it's like, I mean, I'm surprised he released anything unredacted. The first release was a complete joke, and we're never going to see the Epstein files unredacted. Everybody who he has in charge of it is a Zionist, and they got a lot of stuff to redact. Even the stuff that just came out, we can see clearly now that the concern was always redacting Israel's involvement in JFK. That's the one thing.
Yeah, but they're kind of not redacting that. Like the JFK files, someone's pointing out all the parts they released that it was Israeli intelligence was involved in that, which we always suspected,
Right.
but that it's weird how much stuff got redacted, but that part didn't. Right. Like there's this build up. Everyone now knows that Epstein was, or like a lot of people do, that he was tied to Israeli intelligence. It wasn't even Epstein that was running it. It was the Maxwell family.
Right.
Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was a literal Mossad agent that established that whole blackmail network. She was the heir to it, and then Epstein was the front guy. Right. And so it's like, this is coming out now. A lot of people with Epstein problems. I think the big sucker punch that we're going to see is going to be against the UK royal family, right? Like Prince Andrew. And if you look at it, it seems that the UK royal family is being severely degraded in their power. Prince Andrew, was named in the Epstein files.
Yep.
He's been having a lot of problems with that. There was a
not Bill Clinton.
Yeah. But I mean, Bill Clinton doesn't represent dynastic power, like
that's true,
the UK royal family, right? And like, it's pretty clear now that one of the UK royal sons was a bastard child that wasn't even part of the family, and when they found out, like Harry, Prince Henry was fathered by somebody else. And that's the reason why they're like, oh, we're going to disown him. And the media doesn't get into the intrigue of why that could be, but he doesn't look sort of inbred like the rest of the family. And so, I suspect that was actually attack on the royal family in attempts to reduce the dynastic lineage by taking out one of the sons as not heir to the actual throne. They've been corrupting deeply the family for a while. Jimmy Savile, all this kind of stuff. And what's really interesting is that people don't realize this, but the rest of the West, like the English-speaking countries, UK, Australia, New Zealand, like they're all under, and Canada, they're all under the crown, right? And people are like, well, that's just symbolic. It doesn't matter. No, it matters because according to the law, they could come in and just dismiss Parliament and the Prime Minister and say, okay, we're running the show now. And that's completely 100% legitimate, and now you got to have a civil war in order to prevent that from happening. And so what I see with a lot of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff is sort of like Rothschild based, and, where's the Rothschild headquarters? The City of London, right? And a lot of this hate, like if we continue to extrapolate, like where these narratives are going and like what the action's going to be, what I see is I almost kind of wonder if this is some sort of like internal revolt against the richest family. Like if you look at the book by Theodore Herzl about the father of Zionism, like his first, the book that founded it, it had a name change. The original name was like Letter to the Rothschilds, right? And in that book, they threatened that the collective Zionists would take away the power from the Rothschilds unless they got in line with the overall agenda. And so I have to wonder whether there's some internal power exchange that's about to occur, and they're going to need a really big event to take out essentially the UK and break up its power and its empire across the globe, like separate Australia, separate New Zealand, separate Canada, which if you look back at what Trump's saying, he's like, well, let's make Canada the 51st state. Yeah. That's not going to happen in the next year. I believe that that's one of these predictive programming things where they're seeding the narrative now. Well, what if Canada was the 51st state, right? Right. My prediction, and I'm open to being completely wrong, but going based off previous patterns of predictive programming, is that what we're going to see is the fall of the UK family in the next 4 to 6 years. And when that happens, Canada is going to be vulnerable. I mean, they're also making Canada absolutely wretched. Like, Justin Trudeau wasn't corrupt enough. They've got this new guy that's the prime minister, right? Not a democracy. They didn't vote him in. It was just 120 votes by a rigged system. It looks like they're going to make life even worse for Canadians, such that when the time comes, they'll welcome us with open arms to liberate them from the globalist UK forces that are enslaving and putting them into poverty. Yeah. So that's my prediction there. I think we're going to see a revolution against the UK royal family, and that maybe that will give us a scapegoat to say, well, why do we do all this tranny stuff? Why do we have satanic story time? Oh, well, it turns out that the UK were the Satanists and they were behind the whole thing. We get to blame the whole thing and move on with a clear conscience by pitting all the problems on, one particular group and then moving on from that. That's actually, by the way, sort of how a country is able to reunify and reestablish symbiosis. Yeah. You have to have a scapegoat. Everyone has to agree that scapegoat was responsible for all the bad stuff, and then everyone's able to move on, reunify, and then move together as one country again. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Hitler, Lee Harvey Oswald, to name a few.
Yeah.
Over and over. It's rinse and repeat, But, you just answered one of my questions was going to be like, what do you think the biggest surprise in the next 3.5 years is going to be? You think it'll be the downfall of the royal family, or as kind of the scapegoat? I mean, it's certainly, I think, within the realm. That may be one of the many things that happens. Anything else you think is around the corner besides the false flag, of course, which is always looming?
I think we're going to see the total demolishment of the entire global warming narrative. I think what's going to happen is that, look, the global warming narrative is now an existential threat to the elites, because it's sabotaging our ability to lay down power generation, which is going to be really important for the upcoming conflict with China. And so I think that, all of this nuclear, the one thing I don't like is the fact that Trump announced coal. You want to know about where all the mercury poisoning is coming from? In the world, it's coming from.
And people are like, "Yeah, coal."
Yeah,
what the fuck
one
is
thing
happening?
You should not do is lay down coal. All right, it was interesting. There's this not well-known story about Germany where scientists from the largest corporation, I forget what the largest corporation was called, but I think they changed their name to Bayer or something. One of these mega corporations, they discovered how to take coal and turn it into oil.
Wow.
Right? Through a process. And so it's if we're going to use coal to fire these plants, at least what you'd want to do is sort of chemically treat it, turn it into oil by cracking it, and then running clean oil through these. But at the end of the day, why do you even need that? Because we can generate so much clean power from nuclear, and we always could, right? And not just the uranium-235 cycle, which produces plutonium and highly radioactive stuff that's radioactive for a very, very long time and can produce a nuclear bomb. The competing nuclear chemistry that was developed at the right after the nuclear fission, or the uranium-235 cycle, was the thorium-232 cycle. You hit it with a neutron source, it turns into uranium 233, highly radioactive for 2 weeks. It will consume 99% of the fuel. No radioactivity left behind, except for the machine parts because they're getting irradiated. But very, very efficient, very, very powerful. One little marble size, handful of this thorium will satisfy all the energy requirements for your entire life. Just absolutely incredible. And we know that it works because we built a plane that encircled the globe in 1967 at Los Alamos Labs.
Wow.
Right. And so, if I were to, quadruple or 10x the amount of power that I would put down, I would have a Manhattan style project, part due, where we figure out how to finally nail this thorium problem and start rolling it out, essentially one per zip code.
Right.
Right. That's how you build a type 1 civilization.
Right.
And so this, like, I feel like the coal power thing is almost there to piss all the environmentalists off and cement them against Trump. Like, if he had come forward and said, we're going to have marvelous, clean nuclear energy, you know, the environmentalists could get down with that because they're the losing side of the world.
Right.
Laying down coal right now is indefensible.
No, it is. Yeah. People don't know, though. People have no idea.
Right.
It's crazy, man. Listen, I wish we had more time, Zach.
Next time.
But we had some technical issues, but I'm sure that we'll do this again one day. And I appreciate your time very much, man. I know you're a busy dude, and you always have a lot to say, and I enjoy our conversations a lot. But we will do it again sometime soon. I unfortunately got to get going. I got my youngster has a baseball game.
Okay, but, understandable.
I did enjoy our conversation, even though it was slightly briefer than I anticipated and hoped for.
Sorry for all the technical difficulties.
Yeah, man, no worries. Listen, it was on both ends, so it happens. You know, the tech gods were conspiring against us, I guess. Yep. But appreciate you, brother. I will let you know when this is coming out.
I'm going to leave the thing open so it can finish uploading. I know how it works.
I appreciate that. And guys, if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, be sure to write us a review if you enjoyed this information. And if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. And check out Zach's Twitter page. It is a source of information every day. I check on it. He's got a phenomenal presence there. And check out his book if you haven't read it yet.
All right.
Zach.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
You, bro.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.
You too.